Hi there, welcome back to the continuation of Seaborn tutorials. Today I'm going to be talking about a very interesting plot that is complementary to other plots. We're going to be talking about rug plot. So here I have some Persian rug images on the screen, and I bet if you have seen carpets or rugs that have some strings at the end, like this photo in the middle of my screen, you know that it's a marginal type of strings that sits at the end of a carpet. So why am I talking about this? Why am I talking about Persian carpets? The reality is that sometimes we try to cram a lot of information into a plot because we don't have enough time to draw multiple plots and show it to people. And at the same time, some visualizations have to be intertwined to really transfer that meaning and that message that you want the people to hear. I think this is the motivation behind a rug plot. I'm just going to fire this one up. Hopefully you can see it clearly. Let me just boost it up in size. So a rug plot looks like an actual rug strings at the end of a rug or a carpet like this. So imagine you have a kernel density estimation. So if you haven't seen my video on kernel density estimation plot, click on the link up the top. You have a kernel density estimation plot, but at the same time, you would like to produce some form of distribution contribution to this plot. So you want to say, yes, this is the kernel density estimation, which is a form of distribution, but also I'm going to plot some small ticks along the x-axis or the y-axis based on what you're showing to show the distribution of data in terms of more like a density distribution. You can do that in a scatter plot. So imagine you have the total bill from the tips data set that I'm going to be running you through. You have the total bill, you have the distribution for total bill along the x-axis, and you have the amount of tip and the distribution of tip along the y-axis. This is going to be really helpful because people will look at this scatter plot and they say, okay, so if people are spending more money in a restaurant, they're going to tip higher because that's what this scatter plot is showing. But at the same time, they can see that a lot of people are spending between $10 to $30 and they are tipping around $1 to $4. So that shows where most of the data lies. So without further ado, let's go ahead with rug plot. Let's make a new Jupyter notebook, give it a proper name. This one is for Seaborn number 6, and that's for a rug plot. And like always, import Seaborn as SNS. So that's the alias name that we use for Seaborn. And in case we might need it, I'm going to import NumPy as MP, and that's the alias name for that. So if you have been following my videos, you will know that Seaborn has built-in datasets that we can freely use. I'm going to use the same dataset for tips, sns.load dataset, and I want the tips dataset to be loaded. Let's have a look at the head of the data, which is the top 5 rows. This is the amount of total bill people have spent, how much they have tipped, what was their sex, were they a smoker, what day of the week it was, what was the time, lunch or dinner, and what is the size of people that were dining in. Before I go ahead, I would like to repeat this portion that I have been planting in all Seaborn tutorials. So Seaborn has a flat structure, 3 main functions up the top, one for relational data, one for distributions, that's today's focus, and one for categorical, which will be coming in the future weeks. So today we're going to be talking about rug plot, but in summary, what you want to remember is that you can use these top functions to plot everything underneath them. So if you can remember rel plot, dis plot, and cat plot, then you can build everything from them. So let's call SNS dis plot. The data is called the tips data. That's what I called it up the top. And I want to look at the histogram of, say, the total bill. So I'm just going to make a total bill histogram. If you have seen my KDE video, the link up the top, you can set the kind to be KDE, and that will give you a kernel density estimation. And if I wanted to get the rug plot on top, rug is a Boolean variable. I just need to set it to true, and I will see the rug values just beneath the KDE. It looks like the rug strings that I showed you in the Persian carpets. If I wanted to change the color, I can set the color to red, but I don't want everything to be red. I just wanted the rug to be red. So what I need to do, I need to make a new variable. A lot of these functions will be coming in my advanced Seaborn tutorial, but let me show you for now. So you need a parameter called rug KWS, and that has to be a form of a dictionary. And I want to change the rug parameter only to red. I just want the rug plot to be in red. Otherwise, I don't want everything to be red. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to get rid of color red because it makes everything red. However, I just want the rug KWS to be rug KWS. And what is rug KWS? That's here. I set the color to be red. If I run this, you will see that the KDE is in blue and the rog is in red. What happens with line width? If I say line width equals 4, it will make the KDE plot in line width of 4. However, if I make it for the rog plot, you will see that it will make the rog plot in 4 as well, but it's not really handy because it makes it really thick and I can't really see much. So if I set it to 0.5, I can see it much better. Okay, so this was under KDE. What if I change this to ECDF? I can get an ECDF and I can get the rog plot along the x-axis. Let's make a scatter plot for total bill against the amount of tips. So we want to understand if people are spending more money on eating, are they tipping more to the people who are working at the restaurant? Like always, let's set SNS. This time, let's use the rel plot. If you haven't seen my rel plot video, click on the link up the top right. Rel plot, the data is again the tips data. The x variable is the total bill and the y variable is the tip. Was that called the tip? Yes, that's the tip. If I run this, that will give me a scatter plot for total bill and the amount of tip. If I need to add a rog plot, I need to call the rog plot function itself. The data is the tips data, like always. X is total bill, and that's it, because that will give me a rog plot for the x-axis. If you want it for the y-axis as well, you need to make, let me just copy and paste this. This time I want a rog plot on the y-axis, and that's gonna be for the tip column. So now I have the tip column in orange and I have the total bill rog plot in blue down the bottom. You can do this for everything. You can do it for a histogram. I don't think it would be really useful for a histogram because histogram itself is a distribution. You don't want to show a distribution on top of another distribution. I don't think it's really useful. Could I do it for a line plot? Of course. So if I just say rel plot and the kind, set the kind to line, you will see that I can draw it for a line plot. But again, as I have said in my previous video on rel plot, this line plot for this data is not really useful. So let's just put it back to scatter or just not mention it. The default is scatter. Some other changes I can make. I can say I want the hue to be sex. So I want different colors for male guests and female guests in this restaurant. And can I do that for the rog plot itself? Can I say I want 2 different colors for this? I want to see the male distribution and the female distribution separately in different colors. I can set the hue to sex. And now you can see that I have 2 different colors for the rog plot as well. Is it really helpful? Well, I don't really think so because I can't tell them apart. Also, the other thing you can change which helps the visualization is the height of these small ticks. So I think the default is 0.025. So let's set it to 0.1. I think it's going to be really high, but it's more useful. You can see that it's pushing the scatter plot up the top. The 0 was down the bottom here, but now it has pushed it a bit high, but I can see it more clearly. I think now the male and female color is more useful. I guess 0.05 is a good amount, so let's copy that for the bottom one as well. And you can see that I have 2 legends here. I have one legend coming from the rel plot, and I have another legend coming from the rog plot because they have the hue variable. So if there is a hue variable, a legend will pop up automatically. So what I can do, I can say, I don't want any legend for this one so that I will not have 2 legends of the same thing. So just male and female here and nothing there. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, please hit the like button, subscribe to my channel, and stay tuned for my upcoming tutorials. Thank you.